Staff Sergeant Rena Carter had been moving through the fog-shrouded mountains for 6 hours, tracking enemy movements while the SEAL team 1,000 meters below her prepared for their assault. At 29 years old, with shoulder-length dark brown hair usually tucked under a tactical cap and hazel eyes that missed nothing, she had learned that staying unseen was her sharpest tactical advantage. The SEALs didn't even know she was in the area. Her task was independent surveillance, operating alone in terrain most soldiers would not dare to enter. But when the radio crackled with panicked voices, "Contact! Multiple enemy shooters on the ridgeline," the call changed everything. "Estimate 2,000 meters or more. We can't even see them," the SEAL said. Rena realized her quiet surveillance mission was about to become something totally different. She heard the SEAL team leader's frustrated whisper to his second-in-command, "Enemies at 2,000 meters. That's beyond our capability," someone said. "We need specialized support, but there's no time." That was the moment Rena stepped out of the fog bank that had been hiding her position. Her custom-built .338 Lapua Magnum hung across her back as she walked straight toward the stunned SEAL operators. One of them started to argue about who she was, but Rena simply slung her rifle into position, dropped into a steady shooting posture, and spoke 4 words that changed the whole operation: "I've got the distance." The mission had begun 72 hours earlier when intelligence flagged a high-value enemy commander meeting foreign fighters in a remote mountain compound. The SEALs were there to recon, confirm the target, and, if possible, conduct an action raid. Rena's assignment was different. Inserted alone via a high-altitude parachute drop, she was tasked with advanced surveillance from elevated positions the SEALs couldn't safely reach. She operated solo, moving across terrain above 8,000 feet, watching enemy patterns and reporting what she saw. For 3 days she had been a ghost in those mountains. She watched enemy patrols, mapped their routes, and marked defensive positions. She survived on cold rations and minimal water, sleeping in carefully concealed hides that avoided detection. The SEALs had no idea she existed. Her mission was compartmented, only the colonel in charge knew an independent sniper was operating there. To everyone else she was simply another classified intelligence capability. But now, emerging from the fog that had hidden her mountain perch, Rena was about to reveal herself to the 12 surprised SEAL operators hunkered behind rocks as enemy rounds impacted around them. Lieutenant Ethan Ward, the SEAL team leader, stared at the woman who had appeared from nowhere like a mountain spirit. "Who the hell are you and how did you get here?" he demanded. Rena was already setting up her rifle on a stable rock, movements economical and professional. "Staff Sergeant Rena Carter, Independent Surveillance Element. I've been in these mountains for 3 days. Now I'm your counter-sniper support." "Where are the enemy shooters?" Ward asked. "Counter-sniper support," someone muttered. "We didn't request." "Lieutenant, you've got enemy snipers engaging your team from roughly 2,000 meters out. I heard your radio, you're going to need someone who can shoot at that distance." "That's my lane." "So where are they?" Ethan's second-in-command, Chief Petty Officer Blake Rios, pointed toward the northern ridgeline, just visible through the shifting fog. "Northern ridge, above our elevation. We've been taking accurate fire but can't pin exact locations. They're shooting from well beyond our rifle range." Rena pulled her rangefinder and began sweeping the northern ridgeline. "How many shooters?" she asked. "At least 3, maybe more. They've been firing off and on for the last 10 minutes. One of my guys took a round through his plate carrier. Didn't go all the way through, but he's badly bruised." "Have they been moving between shots?" "Hard to tell, the fog keeps rolling in and out, but yeah, they shoot, then relocate." Rena ranged multiple points along the northern ridge, 1,950 meters, 2,020 meters, 2,100 meters. The fog kept complicating things, cutting visibility into brief windows whenever the wind shifted. "Lieutenant, keep your team in hard cover for the next 15 minutes. No movement, no return fire. Let them believe you're pinned and waiting on assistance." That'll make them overconfident, maybe careless about exposing themselves. Ethan studied her, mid-20s to early 30s, lean but muscular. There was a calm about her that said this wasn't her first time under fire. The rifle she was assembling was clearly custom, with top-tier optics, the work of someone who took extreme-range shooting seriously. "Sergeant, with all due respect, who cleared you to be here?" "Colonel Keller at Task Force?" "My mission is compartmented," Rena said. "You weren't briefed on me because I'm meant to be invisible, but your circumstances changed when you took fire from extreme range. Right now, I'm your best option." Blake spoke up. "Ma'am, no disrespect, but those shooters are at 2,000 meters or more. That's outside most shooters' effective range. What makes you think you can engage that far?" Rena finished her setup and met his gaze, hazel eyes steady with certainty. "Chief, my longest confirmed kill is 2,450 meters. I'm certified for extreme long-range interdiction. 2,000 meters is well inside my envelope. Now let me do my job." She leaned back to her scope and methodically scanned the northern ridge. The fog was the real enemy. Every time it rolled over, visibility collapsed to less than 500 meters, but when the wind cleared for a moment, she could pick out terrain features where enemy snipers liked to hide. For 8 minutes nothing moved. The SEAL team stayed bunched in cover, watching the mysterious sniper who'd appeared from nowhere. Some were skeptical, others quietly hopeful, but all of them were baffled about who she was and how she'd gotten there, until Rena saw something. A brief clearing in the fog exposed a figure on the northern ridgeline, half hidden behind rock at roughly 2,050 meters, the enemy sniper preparing for another shot in the false comfort of the mist. "I have visual on one shooter," Rena said under her breath. "Northern ridgeline, 2,050 meters, stand by," she announced, then ranged the man exactly, 2,047 meters, and checked conditions with her handheld weather station. Wind 12 miles per hour from the northwest, temperature 52 degrees Fahrenheit, elevation about 8,300 feet. Humidity 75%. Rena fed those numbers into her ballistic solver and produced a firing solution, 41. 8 MOA elevation, 7. 6 MOA windage. At that distance the round would be airborne for roughly 3.1 seconds. She dialed the scope, settled into a flawless shooting position, and through the glass the enemy sniper looked tiny, barely human at over 1.2 miles. Rena found her natural respiratory pause, took up the trigger slack, and held the crosshairs with the calculated holdover for drop and wind drift. The rifle cracked, the recoil hit hard, but she rode it and stayed on target to watch the result. 3.1 seconds of flight. Through her scope she watched the sniper fold. "Hit," she said calmly. "Target down at 2,047 meters. The SEALs peering through binoculars and optics were speechless. They'd just seen a shot most of them thought impossible. Ethan was the first to speak. "Confirmed. Enemy sniper is down." "Holy shit, you actually hit him from over a mile away." "That's one," Rena said, working the bolt and seating a fresh round. "You said at least 3 shooters." "I'm scanning for the others." She kept scanning the northern ridge as fog rolled back in and obscured the view. 3 days in these mountains had taught her how to read the lay of the land. She knew the likely firing positions. For minutes later another break in the fog revealed a second figure, this one out at about 2,120 meters farther west along the ridge. "Second target acquired, 2,120 meters, she reported. She recalculated for the extra distance and a shifted wind angle, squeezed the trigger, and 3.2 seconds later the second sniper went down. 2 down, Rena said, eyes still sweeping for any more threats. Chief Blake Rios was looking at her with something close to awe. "Sergeant, those were the 2 best shots I've ever seen. You're making 2,000+ meter kills look routine." "At those ranges it's just math," she said, "measure the variables correctly, calculate precisely, and execute the fundamentals. Distance is simply another variable to account for." Ethan keyed his radio, Griffin 6 to TOK, be advised we have counter-sniper support on station. 2 enemy snipers neutralized at extreme range. Continuing mission. The SEAL team began moving again, pushing toward their objective, the compound where the enemy commander was believed to be hiding, and Rena moved with them, keeping slightly higher to preserve overwatch. As they advanced, Ethan fell back to walk alongside her. "Sergeant, I need to know your capabilities. Are you strictly counter-sniper or can you provide sustained support?" "I can provide whatever support you need, Lieutenant," Rena replied. "Counter-sniper is my specialty, but I'm qualified across precision fire roles. If you need precision engagement out to 2,500 meters, I can deliver. What about closer fights, 500 to 800 meters if we run into resistance?" "Trained on all engagement distances," she said. "My rifle is optimized for extreme range, but I can make shots at any distance. Tell me what needs to be eliminated and give me sight lines." They kept moving through the mountains while fog rolled in and out, sometimes giving them concealment, sometimes exposing them on open slopes. 20 minutes later the team reached an observation point above the compound. Ethan glassed the target while Rena scanned through her scope. The compound sat in a valley roughly 1,400 meters away. She could make out multiple buildings, defensive walls, and maybe 15 to 20 fighters spread around. "I count about 20 hostiles," Ethan said. "They're not on high alert, probably don't know we're here yet. How do we approach without getting spotted?" Rena studied the compound through the glass. "Lieutenant, I see 3 positions that worry me: a guard tower on the northeast corner with at least 1 sentry, a machine gun emplacement on the main roof, and a fighting position on the western wall with multiple personnel. Can you engage those from here?" "Affirmative," she said. "Ranges are between 1,400 and 1,500 meters depending on the exact target, well within my capability. But once I start shooting, the compound will know they're under attack." Ethan thought through the tactic. "If you can take out the tower, the machine gun, and the western position quickly, my team can move in during the confusion. How fast can you engage all 3? "Give me 2 minutes to prearrange and compute firing solutions for each position," Rena answered. "Once I have that, I can engage all 3 in under 60 seconds if you need speed." "Do it," Ethan said. "When you finish the 3rd shot, we move." Rena spent the next 2 minutes preparing with obsessive care. Rena ranged each target with precision: guard tower at 1,437 meters, machine gun at 1,485, western fighting position at 1,392. She calculated ballistic solutions for all 3, compensating for every slight difference in range and angle. In her mind, she mapped the order: tower first to remove their eyes, machine gun second to silence the heavy weapon, and the western wall last since those fighters would take the longest to react. "Ready," she said evenly. "On your signal, I'll engage all 3 positions in sequence. Estimate 50 seconds from first shot to 3rd. Ethan positioned his team for the assault. "Execute when ready." Rena steadied herself, aligned her crosshairs on the tower sentry with the proper holdover, and squeezed the trigger. The sentry dropped instantly. She cycled the bolt smoothly, swung to the machine gun nest, fired again. The gunner slumped over his weapon. Another swift bolt, another shift, she targeted the western wall and picked off the most exposed fighter, sending him tumbling backward. "All 3 positions engaged," she reported. "Tower clear, machine gun neutralized, western position disrupted. Griffin 6, move, move, move." Ethan led his team down the slope in a sprint while Rena stayed high in overwatch, scanning for threats. Through her scope she saw the SEALs advancing while the enemy below was still disoriented. An enemy appeared on the main roof, rifle raised, range 1,450 meters. Rena fired. He went down before pulling the trigger. Another ran for the unmanned machine gun, range 1,470, she fired again. Target down. Her overwatch was surgical. The enemy never saw her, only watched comrades drop from invisible fire. The SEALs breached the compound and began clearing room to room while Rena kept scanning. Movement caught her eye, a rooftop 200 meters from the SEALs, a fighter with an RPG lining up a shot. Range 1,630 meters. She ranged, calculated, and fired in under 5 seconds. The RPG gunner crumpled before he could launch. Griffin 6, this is Overwatch, she transmitted. Eliminated an RPG operator on the northern roof, you had a rocket incoming. Overwatch, Griffin 6, good shooting. Continuing clearance. For the next 15 minutes, Rena provided pinpoint overwatch as the team swept the compound, taking down 7 more threats between 1,400 and 1,700 meters. Finally, Ethan's voice crackled over the radio, Overwatch, Griffin 6, compound secure. HVT confirmed Kia, eliminated during breach. We're conducting sensitive site exploitation, then we'll be ready for exfil, Ethan said. Roger, Griffin 6, I'll hold Overwatch until you're set to move. 20 minutes later the SEALs pulled out of the compound, carrying captured intelligence and documents. Rena moved from her Overwatch perch and linked up with them at the planned extraction point. When she reached the rally, Ethan approached with a look that mixed disbelief and deep respect. Sergeant Carter, I counted 11 enemy killed by your fire during that operation. Every one of those shots stopped a threat to my team, Ethan replied. You saved lives today. Just doing my job, Lieutenant, she said. Your job? Most snipers can't shoot like that. Where did you train? Special Operations Sniper Course, then advanced long-range training at a facility I can't discuss, Rena answered. I've been doing extreme distance work about 4 years. Chief Blake Rios joined them. Ma'am, Sergeant, I've worked with a lot of snipers. What you did today, the 2,000+ meter shots and the sustained precision during the breach, that's the best shooting I've ever seen. Ethan nodded. I'm writing a commendation for your actions. But I have questions. You said you've been out here 3 days, solo? Affirmative, she said. I inserted via high-altitude parachute drop 72 hours ago and have been conducting surveillance from elevated positions, mapping enemy movements. You've been operating alone above 8,000 feet in hostile territory for 3 days. That's incredibly dangerous. Rena offered a small smile. Solo operations are my specialty, Lieutenant. I prefer working alone, no one to compromise my position, no one to slow me down. Total freedom to move through terrain most people can't reach. What about resupply, support, extraction if things go wrong? Ethan pressed. I carry what I need, she said. Water purification, cold rations, cold weather gear, emergency medical. If extraction fails, I handle it the same way I handle everything else, carefully, quietly, alone. The extraction helicopters arrived and lifted the team out. On the flight back, SEALs clustered with questions about her shooting, training, and kit. She answered professionally but offered little else. She'd learned that a little mystery was tactically useful, let people wonder, let them speculate. It kept them from thinking they fully understood her capabilities. Back at Falcon Base she was met by Colonel Adrian Keller, the task force commander who'd authorized her insertion. Sergeant Carter, I've been monitoring the operation, he said. Your shooting was exceptional. 11 confirmed kills from roughly 1,400 to 2,100 meters, including critical saves that prevented SEAL casualties. Outstanding work. Thank you, sir, she answered. I'm hearing you stepped out of the fog like a ghost, took charge of the counter-sniper problem, and made shots the team is calling the best they've ever seen. You've made an impression. Sir, I prefer to avoid making impressions. I work better when people don't know I'm there, Rena said with a half-smile. Keller nodded, but added that after today the special operations community would know her name. Word spread fast about the sniper who'd appeared from nowhere and turned impossible shots into routine work. Over the next 2 weeks Rena supported 3 more SEAL operations, each time from elevated positions others couldn't or wouldn't reach, making engagements from roughly 1,600 to 2,300 meters and taking out threats before they could strike friendly forces. Her reputation grew even though she wanted to stay anonymous. SEALs who'd seen her fire began telling others. There was a lone sniper roaming the mountains, a woman who made impossible shots and moved like a ghost through terrain. Some started calling her the Fog because she arrived unseen, killed with surgical precision, and melted back into the peaks without explanation. The nickname amused her. It matched how she worked: invisible until needed, devastating in execution, gone before anyone could process what had happened. 3 weeks into deployment she got orders for the hardest mission yet. Colonel Adrian Keller briefed her personally. Intelligence had identified an enemy commander who'd been directing attacks for 6 months, responsible for at least 40 coalition deaths, careful, paranoid, constantly shifting locations, but confirmed to appear at a compound tomorrow at noon. "What's the challenge, sir?" she asked. Keller explained the compound sat in a valley surrounded by enemy-held ground. Any conventional assault would cost too many lives, and airstrikes were off the table because of civilians. There was an elevated firing position roughly 2,800 meters from the compound. Rena's eyes widened. 2,800 meters pushed even her limits. "Sir, that's at the edge of my rifle's maximum effective range. I've never made a combat shot that long," she admitted. "I know," Keller said, "but you're the only sniper I have who might even try it. If you think it's possible, you're authorized. If not, we'll find another way." Rena studied imagery and topo data until the lines made sense. "Sir, 2,800 meters is possible in perfect conditions with perfect execution. I'd need extensive prep, detailed environmental data, and a bit of luck." "Do you think you can make it?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "You're authorized. Insert solo tomorrow morning, establish the position, engage when he appears at 1200 hours. The next morning she was inserted by helicopter to a perch at 9,100 feet. The landing zone was barely big enough for the bird to hover while she jumped out loaded with kit. 6 hours to prepare for a shot that would either make history or teach her where her limits lay. She built her firing position with obsessive care, ranging the compound at multiple points: 2,784 meters, 2,791 meters, 2,806 meters, and estimated the target would present at approximately 2,795 meters when he appeared. She spent 2 hours studying the environment. Wind was the unpredictable variable. At 2,795 meters the round would be airborne for roughly 4.3 seconds. In that span even a moderate breeze could shove the bullet more than 10 feet laterally, so she watched vegetation at multiple distances and estimated wind at 500-meter intervals along the flight path. She charted temperature gradients from her perch down into the valley. She factored the steep downhill angle into the equation. The ballistic solution was fiendishly complex: 78. 4 MOA elevation, 13. 2 MOA windage, plus additional compensation for the downward angle and the thin mountain air. By 11:55 figures began to populate the courtyard below. Through maximum magnification the people in the compound looked impossibly small, tiny moving shapes in what felt like a model village at that range. At 12:02 the target appeared. Intelligence had provided photos, and even at 2,795 meters Rena could pick him out by his distinctive clothing and how others deferentially clustered around him. She had one shot, miss, and maybe another chance later. She settled into textbook position and ran her numbers once more. She slowed her breathing until her pulse dipped to its lowest natural rate. Through the scope she set the crosshairs with a massive holdover, her aim point several feet above and right of the desired impact to counter drop and wind. At the quiet respiratory pause she began to apply pressure to the trigger. The rifle cracked. Rena stayed perfectly still behind the glass and watched for impact. At that distance the 4.3-second flight felt like an eternity. She tracked the round in the scope, praying the wind didn't shift in those critical seconds. Then she saw it: the target folded. Other figures in the courtyard scattered in a sudden panic. Their commander had simply dropped. Rena keyed her radio. Falcon Base, this is Overwatch 1. Target neutralized. One shot, confirmed hit at 2,795 meters. There was a long pause. Then Colonel Keller's voice came back, Overwatch 1, confirm your last. Did you say 2,795 meters? Affirmative, sir, she replied. 2,795 meters, one shot, target confirmed down. Sergeant Carter, that's beyond anything I've ever heard of. Are you certain of the range? Range verified with laser rangefinder, sir. Multiple measurements confirm 2,795 meters, you just set a new record, Keller said, struggling for words. Extraction inbound. Outstanding hardly covers it. When Rena returned to base, she was met not only by Colonel Adrian Keller but by a two-star general who'd flown in specifically to see the sniper who'd scored a 2,795-meter combat kill. Major General Lydia Cross looked at Rena like someone witnessing something barely believable. Sergeant Carter, I've read your report, reviewed the imagery, and confirmed the range, she said. You made a shot over 1.7 miles, that exceeds the previous record by several hundred meters. How is that even possible? Rena stood at attention. Ma'am, it's possible because I've spent years training for extreme long-range shooting. I understand the math of external ballistics at distances most people call impossible. I can read environmental conditions accurately, and I execute the fundamentals with discipline earned from thousands of hours of practice. But at that distance, any variable, wind, temperature, elevation, target movement, a small miscalculation will miss by feet, she added. Yes, ma'am. That's why I spent 6 hours preparing. I measured every variable I could, calculated solutions for multiple scenarios, and waited for the moment when conditions were as close to perfect as they'd get. Then I executed the shot I'd prepared for. General Cross shook her head in amazement. Sergeant, you're promoted to Sergeant First Class, effective immediately. You're also being awarded the Bronze Star with Valor for your actions this past month. More importantly, what you've accomplished changes how we think about long-range precision fire. You've demonstrated capabilities we didn't know were possible. 3 days later Rena received new orders, reassignment to a specialized unit focused on extreme long-range operations. Her role would be to train other snipers in advanced techniques, push the boundaries of what's considered possible, and execute missions requiring capabilities no one else had. But before she left theater, the SEAL team she'd supported requested one final meeting. Lieutenant Ethan Ward and his team assembled on base. Ethan spoke for them all. Sergeant Carter, we wanted to thank you personally. You stepped out of the fog when we needed you most, made shots we thought impossible, and saved lives that would have been lost without your skill. We've worked with a lot of support elements, but we've never seen anyone operate like you do, Chief Blake Rios added. Ma'am, you've set a standard the rest of us will spend our careers trying to reach. That 2,795-meter shot, that's legend status. Beyond the record, it was the way she operated alone for weeks in the mountains and delivered precision fire exactly when needed that defined professional excellence. Rena looked at the 12 SEALs who'd been her teammates for a month. Gentlemen, I appreciate the kind words, but the truth is simpler, she said. I have a specific skill set, extreme long-range shooting in difficult conditions. When situations arise that require that skill set, I use it, nothing more complicated than that, Rena said. Ethan shook his head. You make it sound simple, but we both know it's not. Most people can't do what you do. Hell, most snipers can't do what you do. Maybe, Rena replied, but I believe anyone with enough dedication can develop these skills. It takes discipline, endless practice, and the will to operate in conditions that push both body and mind. It's not magic, it's work. One of the younger SEALs spoke up, hesitant but curious. Ma'am, is it true they're calling you the Fog now? Rena smiled faintly. I've heard the nickname. It's fitting, I suppose. I like to work from concealment, appear when needed, disappear when it's done, like the fog rolling through these mountains. Ethan chuckled. It's more than fitting. You're exactly like fog, invisible until you're there, impossible to predict, and gone before anyone realizes what happened. Except unlike fog, you're deadly precise. A week later, Rena departed the theater. Her 30-day deployment ended with 43 confirmed kills at ranges between 1,400 and 2,795 meters, 8 special operations missions completed without a single friendly casualty. Her 2,795-meter shot would be studied in sniper schools for decades, and her solo mountain tactics would become training doctrine for special forces worldwide. But her real legacy wasn't the records or the accolades, it was proving that the limits people imagined for long-range precision were only the limits of their own belief. With the right skills, the right tools, and the right mindset, impossible was just another word for difficult. And difficult was exactly what Rena Carter specialized in. The SEALs had once whispered in frustration, enemies at 2,000 meters, we can't reach them. Then Rena Carter stepped out of the fog that had hidden her for 3 days, took up her rifle, and made those impossible shots look routine. Over the next month she would eliminate 43 enemy combatants at distances most snipers only dreamed of, culminating in a record-breaking 2,795-meter kill that redefined what was thought possible, and proved that sometimes the solution to an impossible problem is a quiet woman who spent her life mastering exactly that kind of impossible. Thanks for watching. Every woman has a story worth telling. Join us to hear them, only on Major Tom's Tales.